Communication is one of the biggest challenges for employer organisations all over the world for many different reasons. On the first point, it's key to how we attract, retain and engage members. So the whole internal communication is absolutely essential. But then it's also key for how employer organisations take forward their campaigning messages, and how do we make sure that our campaigns, that our lobbying activities really resonate in a time of massive over-communication. Part of of what we need to achieve is really first-class communication strategies which enable us to underpin our messages. There's many facets to a great communication strategy. I would say one of the first things is to be absolutely clear about what you're trying to achieve. So right at the start, you say, how are we going to measure the success of this communication strategy? So that's one of the facets of it. Does it actually really have the impact that we want? So how do you build credibility into it? Again, using data, using stories, making it come to life is a really big part of it. And it's also about innovating, it's about using different channels. How do we use social media more effectively? How do we use video? How do we get our members engaged? How do we make it into a real campaign that has momentum? So there's lots of different facets of it. I think what it does mean is as communication channels evolve, it means that one of the prerequisite skills that we need to bring in to employer organisations are people who are ahead of the game in terms of how we use different channels and who are great communicators, and especially important at the time of massive over-communication when the wider public, when politicians, where businesses are getting so much information. How do we make sure that our messages break through and really resonate? So one of the components of a great communication strategy is how you build the infrastructure internally. So where does communication sit? Is it part of the marketing team? Is it the public relations team? Is it your lobbying and advocacy team? In reality, it's all of those and more, isn't it? It's your chief executive. So one of the big ways forward for employee organisations is to find a really good way of structuring your communication strategy, which involves everybody. A lot of this is about really good project management, which again comes back down to the kind of skills increasingly we need to bring into employee organisations and to nurture within employee organisations. So yes, it's about communication, but it's about project management, it's about really great team working, being able to innovate all the time, etc. So again, I think a lot of these areas are opportunities for us, and it's about promoting the role of business, but also about promoting employee organisations as great places to work, where you can evolve and be challenged and find new ways of doing things. So in terms of communication, in reality, there's two types of campaign and communication that we see. One is reactive. So government are developing regulations. We want to have a voice. We want to impact on that. Involving members in that work is essential. What we're also seeing, though, is ourselves at the REC and other employee organisations are increasingly being very proactive in their campaign. So looking at particular issues which are hot topics. So it could be something, say, like youth unemployment, which is a big topic in many, many countries. How do we deal with an aging population and bring older workers back into the workplace is another hot topic across many jobs markets. So how do we build our voice on that, and how do we engage our members on it to help make a difference? And part of that is being very, very clear up front about why we're taking forward a particular campaign, what the benefits are for our industry in the long term. It might not be that there's immediate self-interest on some of these proactive campaigns, but a lot of this is about reputation, about how we position our voice at the forefront of some of the key political debates. And members will understand that if you can explain it proactively. And they'll not only understand it, they will want to get involved, because at the heart of many businesses and many business leaders is a fundamental desire to help make a difference in society. And if we can tap into that as employer organisations, suddenly we've got a legion of activist members who are not there just to receive information, they're not there just to receive guidance, etc. They're there to work with us proactively to help make a difference and to really drive our campaigns. The key for many employer organisations is how do we build credibility to our messages, and that we can achieve through really good data. For example, a lot of employer organisations are doing some great research, so that helps to build our messages. But it's about more than that, isn't it? It's about how do we really connect and how do we bring some emotion into our discussions. And one way that we can do that is by not just using data, but using stories. And some of the feedback we're getting from employer organisations is it's about who takes the message forward. It's not just what we say, it's how we say it and who's saying it. So maybe it's time for us to engage with a broader spectrum of people within our organisations, so getting some of our members to speak, and not just at the chief executive level, to get people throughout an organisation to become the voice of that business and the voice of the employer community in that particular country. So one of the priorities for many employer organisations is, whenever you're thinking about your campaigns, about your communication, what does good look like and how do you measure success? And there's different ways that you can do that. Certainly if you're looking at a media campaign, you can count the number of hits you get in the press, the sort of number of broadcast opportunities you get, that's part of it. Ultimately, if you're campaigning on a particular issue, you would measure success about whether you actually changed government's policy, so that's a good way of doing it. But there's other ways that you can look to measure yourself. So one example that we have, for example, is having a really clever influence metrics which tracks the feedback that you're getting from politicians, from other stakeholders, which monitors not your activity, but the outcome of your activity. So what feedback are you getting from external stakeholders, external politicians, etc. And you build that up and it gives you an overview of, yes, we've managed to score highly because we've gone above what we thought we would achieve. So again, it's really important, again, to make sure that we are capturing that data that we can feed back to our council, to our board, back to our members, so that our members can see that we're doing a good job. But also it enables us to learn, doesn't it? So if we're driving forward a campaign and we're not having the impact, we need to be able to learn from that. Say, what can we do differently the next time to have the impact that we do want? So measuring is a key way of recognising our work, both internally and externally, but also make sure we're continuously trying to get better at what we do. The biggest single change, of course, in communication has been the advent of social media, which is not an easy one to keep up to speed with, let alone get ahead of the game on. It's seen by many as a bit of a challenge. You do lose control of the messaging, but I think we need to embrace social media. So the question for many employer organisations is, how do we see it as a game changer? How do we really use it to amplify our messages back to members, but also our external messages? And how do we get as good as possible in terms of how we use it? So the sort of skills that we bring into the organisation will be essential. And I think we can be quite ambitious. I think as a community, employer organisations across the world must have an aspiration for not just playing catch up, but trying to preempt what's going to be next, and how are future generations of workers going to engage? How are future generations of businesses going to want to receive communication? If we can get ahead of the game on that, suddenly it opens up all sorts of opportunities. The big question when it comes to social media is why are we doing this? And it mustn't be the case that employer organisations get involved just because they think they have to. I think it is about being very clear about what the end game is in terms of why we're trying to use social media, and the channels that you use will vary according to those objectives. So let me give you an example. If we're trying to engage with the members and get some quick dialogue going, that might be where we use Twitter effectively to spread the word. If we're looking to get a debate going within the membership, that might be where we set up a LinkedIn forum to have that ongoing dialogue. If we're an employer organisation that's trying to promote careers in a particular sector, for example, certainly reaching out to younger generations of workers coming into the workplace, there we might want to use Facebook. So all the different multi-channels that we can use, we need to explore the opportunities, absolutely, but we need to be clear for each one why we're targeting and what the outcome will look like if we do it effectively.